action. All right. So in general, relationship skills are any abilities that help you to connect with others and form bonds. And of course, we're talking about healthy bonds. And these can be a broad range of abilities or skills, but I have identified, well, it's really 12 I identified, but I say 11, right? I have identified 11 that I feel are really, really critical for healthy relationships. And they are number one, which we'll be dealing with today, self-awareness. Two, emotional regulation. Three, empathy. Four, being vulnerable. Five, controlling anger or anger management. Let me just pause here because I'm getting a feedback that is a little bit disturbing. So I don't know if possibly on the station that could be cleared up. So I'll just go again, right? So important relationship skills are one, self-awareness, two, emotional regulation, three, empathy, four, being vulnerable, five, controlling anger or anger management, six, conflict resolution, seven, active listening, eight, talking and listening to each other with openness and respect, especially when we're having difficult conversations. So that's a long name there for a skill, but that is a skill. Number nine, forgiving. 10, repenting and apologizing. So you're not going to separate those and make them two different skills. And number 11, setting boundaries. So as I continue with this program, I will be going into depth into all of these skills. So I'm really excited about today's program because for me, self-awareness is one of the most important skills necessary for us to have sustained healthy relationships. And as I said, this is part one of self-awareness because it is a big topic. And I really want to take my time here. And I thank listeners for all the feedback I've been getting on social media with respect to this series. So for those of you all just tuning in, we're looking at the important relationship skills. And today I'm starting with self-awareness. And in this part one, I want to address what is self-awareness and what behaviors normally indicate that you lack self-awareness. So as I said again, this is really, for me, is one of the most important skills if we have to have and sustain healthy relationships. So the skill of self-awareness is important in every area of your life, but it is essential when dealing with relationships. If you are aware of the things that you say and that you do, you will be able to recognize when your actions bother or hurt or anger someone else, right? If you are aware of how you feel, how you think, you are better able to manage your feelings instead of your feelings managing you and negatively impacting your relationships. If you are aware of how you feel and think, you are better able to make yourself happy, to understand your behaviors, to change unhealthy mindsets, and to be more gracious and compassionate with others. And you know, many times I one of the things I do is people watch. So sometimes I am in a space and really just sitting and observing people interacting with each other. I really love to see people interacting and laughing and sharing and just being vulnerable, you know, with each other. And then, of course, you see unhealthy things happening also. But you can tell when somebody really doesn't realize how they're coming over to others. And that could look very, very painful, not just for the person, because the person may not even realize what they're doing, but painful for the persons who are in interacting with somebody who lacks self-awareness. So self-awareness is the capacity that a person has to introspect, and it includes gaining an understanding of and insight into one's strengths. Do you know your strengths? Do you know your qualities? Do you know your weaknesses, your defects, right? Your ideas, your thoughts, your beliefs, your ideals, your core values, your responses, your reactions, attitudes, emotions, and motivations. And we don't get to truly know ourselves if we are not willing to take feedback from others. If we are not willing to hear from others how we are impacting them. So many times, the way we get to know ourselves is not just through spending time with God and Him revealing things to us and through His word, but also our relationships. And if we are open in our relationships, we can get a lot of information about our strengths, our weaknesses, our qualities, our defects, our beliefs. Right? One of the really important things is having healthy friendships where people can be truly honest with us about how we come over. Right? That is just so critical to healthy relationships. Self-awareness includes assessing how one is perceived by others. And we need feedback to understand that, and how others are impacted based on one's behavior, responses, and conduct. Many people are surprised when somebody confronts them about how they are perceived, not because it hasn't been self-awareness is important because when you have a better understanding of yourself, you are able to experience yourself as a unique and separate individual. You recognize your own emotions and how they affect your thoughts and behaviors, and how your beliefs affect your emotions, because how we think does impact how we feel, right? So we do not feel like yo-yos the other person's emotional state. So somebody gets up on the wrong side of the bed, as we say, and you're coming down on me. Now, I know I haven't done anything wrong. So I know that there's something happening with you. So I don't have to just fall apart as a result of your behaviors because of my thinking, right? I understand I haven't done anything wrong. Or you, oh gosh, Petreece, you're so stupid and ugly. I do not believe those things about myself anymore. So you saying that to me does not have any negative impact on me. I literally would pray for you. I literally would try to help you if I can. Now, way back when, that would have impacted me negatively, right? Because of things I believed about myself. But when I was able, by God's grace and help, to change those unhealthy mindsets about myself, saying things like that to me no longer affects me in a negative way, right? So very critical that we realize that our thinking and our beliefs, they do affect our emotions. So when we are self-aware, because self-awareness is important so that we do not feel like yo-yos to other people's emotional states. You also do not blame people for your emotional state. At the end of the day, these are my feelings, and I have to be proactive about my feelings. So yes, you may have done something, it caused me to feel like this, but these are my feelings. What do I need to think and or do so that I can feel differently? It is my emotional state, and I need to do something about it, right? We allow people to feel what they feel without feeling responsible, right, for their emotional state, all the time, and always feeling responsible for making people happy. We're not going around trying to treat people badly or make people feel any kind of painful emotion. No, that's not what I'm saying. So yes, I, as especially a follower of Jesus, am responsible for treating you compassionately, with grace and with love. right? But it's very critical that we are not in this space where I come into a space and I have to make everybody happy and, or I'm responsible for people being okay. Self-awareness means that you have a solid understanding about who you are and how you relate to the world. This means being mentally and emotionally present in situations and understanding how your actions affect people. It also means that you are aware of what you really enjoy and what you dislike. And as I said in part 2 of this program, please make sure that you tune in. I would be looking at, becoming what we need to do to become more self-aware. Now, what behaviors normally indicate that you lack self-awareness? So I just identified 8. Of course, there are more, but I think these are critical ones. So what behaviors normally indicate that you lack self-awareness? 1, you feel it is always someone else to blame for things. So it's always somebody else's fault. 2, you are in denial. 3, you show an inability to give and receive apologies. 4, you are very passive aggressive. Now, most of us from time to time show some kind of passive aggressiveness, which is not healthy. And thankfully, we can continue to grow and change. But a person who lacks self-awareness, a lot of what they do and their responses, passive aggressive responses, right? You do not actually understand, this is number 5, you do not actually understand why you act the way you do. Number 6, you are prone to emotional outbursts. 7, you feel the need to talk all the time. And number 8, most of the things you say are negative or criticizing. So I'm not saying that that people have to have all these behaviors. We could have one of them. One of them could show that there's a need for greater self-awareness in this person's life, or a person may have a number of them, right? Now, one sure way to determine if you have an issue with self-awareness is that you feel everyone else is to blame for things that are happening, right? So for example, you have been making nasty comments to your adult daughter. Your daughter asks you to please stop, and you become irritated with her for accusing you, in inverted commas. She's accusing you. Without self-reflecting at all, you ramp up your negative comments until you say a few horrible things that you cannot take back, right? She becomes hurt, of course. She becomes emotionally hurt and says she will not see you again unless you stop this type of behavior. You blame her and tell others you don't understand why she has gotten what has gotten into your daughter, and out of nowhere, she threatens to never see you again. You don't see your part in the issue. That is a person who truly lacks self-awareness, right? Or another example, you're up for promotion at work and you're really excited and it seems like the promotion is a sure deal. You have been told that this is definitely happening, right? And you naturally share it, but you bring it up with all your friends. And at a friend's birthday dinner, you talk and you talk loudly about your promotion and you know how happy you are. And throughout the dinner, you're talking about it. And while your friend opening gifts, you're talking about it. And when your friend tries to change the subject, you assume that your friend is jealous of you. You assume that your friend is jealous of you. This is a person with a need for self-awareness. In each of these examples, what is missing is self-reflection. So even if initially I assume my friend was jealous, and I sit down and reflect, you realize, no, this is not how you're supposed to behave when somebody is giving thanks and celebrating their birthday and thanking God for another year of life that has gone, right? If you reflect, you'll realize, I think I behaved badly there. I need to apologize, right? So do some soul searching to determine, right, if you could be more self-aware. Self-reflection is critical for greater self-awareness, and I will discuss self-reflection in the next program, God's willing. But that's really important, especially if we see somebody's upset with us, or we just assuming that is them. Sometimes we just need to reflect. It's not always that you have done something wrong, but sometimes you may realize, yes, I could have acted differently. I did do something wrong. I did act inappropriately in a situation. Very, very critical self-reflection if we have to develop greater self-awareness. Secondly, and self-awareness is a continual process, right? The more you do it, the better you will be at determining how the way you think, the way you act, how it affects your own life and your relationship with others. Number two, you are in denial. Saying one thing, but acting or behaving differently. We need to realize, people, while our intentions are important, our intentions or motives are important, our behaviors truly is what is impacting others. And we cannot just judge ourselves by our intentions. Well, I intended to do this, or I didn't intend to do that. But what did you do? And therefore, this is critical. We could be saying one thing, but acting and behaving differently, and wonder why people don't trust us, and wonder why people think like this towards us. But that wasn't my intention, though. Yes, but it is your behaviors that are impacting others. So while your intentions and your motives are wonderful, what about what you are actually doing, right? You do not realize that your behavior is the driving force which is creating conflict with others. No, because my intention's good and my motive's good, right? When you lack awareness of your behavior and its impact on others, you are unable to make positive changes. So it's very important, because even Jesus said, judge me by the things that I do, the very works. I do the work of the Father. And therefore, we cannot just judge ourselves by our motives and our intentions, which may be good. We need to also judge ourselves by our actual behaviors. What is my behavior saying? How are my behaviors impacting others? Relatives and friends, say you have an anger problem. You say, I don't deal with disrespect. I don't deal with disrespect. It is because my wife or my children or my co-workers are disrespectful. That is the way I act like that, right? And that is exactly what they need. They need somebody to put them in their place, right? I don't have a problem. They do. So as far as you're concerned, it's not me. It is them. If they change their behavior, then I would need to behave like this. So not only are you, in a sense, blaming others, but you're also in denial about the fact that you have an issue, right? We are great at inventing what seems to us to be logical reasons for what we do, and to cover things we are often scared to deal with. However, a constant denial will not only create toxic interpersonal relationships, but also lead to personal burnout because of the underlying stress of failing to recognize what is happening. So I think one of the things, even as you're listening today, it is important for us to not just look at our motives and our intentions, which a lot of times may be good, But we need to look at how our behaviors are impacting people, because behaviors are what are causing havoc. The behaviors, right? Number three, you make excuses. You make excuses or you get defensive. You make excuses or you get defensive. In your mind, you know you are right, and there's a perfectly good reason for why you are right, and everyone just doesn't get it. So you're making excuses. I know I'm right. They just don't get it. They just don't understand. Or sometimes we just act defensively. You just act defensively. People who are acting defensively are essentially trying to protect themselves from feeling a certain uncomfortable way, or from viewing themselves as a failure or wrong or not good enough, or otherwise in some negative light, right? They do not understand their true worth. They don't realize that their worth has nothing to do with getting it right or getting it wrong. Yes, we could get things wrong. Yes, we can fail. That doesn't make us a failure. And so they become defensive. Unfortunately, you are missing, when we do that defensiveness, we are missing opportunities to explore options that may have great benefits to you and to others, and also to your relationship, right? Over time, this defensive response of making excuses or being defensive soon becomes an integral habit that is hard to break, right? It holds you back from growing, and it damages your relationships. And what actually happens over time also is that people stop trying to show you where you're going wrong, right? Because they know the backlash of it, right? And people stop being totally honest with you, because instead of just really listening and being able to own up and say, true. Yeah, I'm feeling bad, but yeah, that was wrong. Yeah, true. That was bad. We either become defensive and say things like, well, you will do this also, but you can't remember when this happened last week, and so we just throw it back and become defensive. People realize, this doesn't make sense. It is too painful for me to be doing this, and it seems to be too painful for you to even hear it. So number three, another common trait of a lack of self-awareness is an inability to give and receive apologies. An inability to give and receive apologies. When someone apologizes, you may not accept it at all. You're not accepting it at all, or believe that the person needs to keep apologizing, right? You do not understand what it means to truly accept someone's apology and move on. And as a result, you continually harm the relationship by bringing up old arguments. And on the other hand, you hardly ever, rarely apologize when you should, or if you do, it is a non-apology instead of a genuine acknowledgement of how you acting. So those non-apologies that say, I am sorry, but you so. All right. Yeah, I was wrong, but so. Those non-apologies, right? You do not see your own need for forgiveness and your need to apologize. Your focus stays on what someone else did instead of your own contribution to the argument or to the situation or the conflict. Number four, you are very passive aggressive. This is a behavior style that reflects from issues that are bothering you and that you do not have the will or ability to confront. So you are not confronting things. So instead of saying, I did not appreciate what you did there, I would prefer you do so and so and so, or this made me feel so and so, or could you please do so, right? You deflect from issues that are affecting you and bothering you. You do not confront, you don't say anything, right? So this is where you are indirectly aggressive and you express your hostility in ways designed to hurt and or confuse their target without saying or expressing what you are really upset about, right? You might not even know what the problem is. You just want to avoid anything near it altogether. So what you do is show your anger at something else or try to hurt the person in some way without saying what is bothering you. So people do this. So instead of saying what bothering you, I just don't respond to their messages, or I go on a washing up the wares and banging up things, or I see something impacting them, and instead of helping, I decide to act like if I didn't know what was happening. So the person come and said, girl, I really needed your help, you know. So, and you saw it that they needed help. And you say, well, girl, I didn't realize now, but you well realize, right? You're just being passive aggressive, right? Sometimes people show their passive aggressiveness and somebody, deserve some kind of praise or some kind of reward, and they withhold that, but they can't tell that that's what you're doing because they don't know that they were supposed to get this prize or this award or this whatever. You just give it to somebody else, right? So we can passive aggressiveness normally shows a lack of self-awareness. Number 5, you do not actually understand why you act the way you do. A good indicator that you lack self-awareness deals with how well you understand your emotions, your actions, and behaviors. People who lack self-awareness often feel constantly out of whack, anxious, or angry. They usually cannot even pinpoint what is really upsetting them half of the time. Number 6, you are prone to emotional outbursts. You are prone to emotional outbursts. Emotional outbursts happens, of course, for a wide range of reasons, most of which involve a lack of self-control and a lack of self-awareness. And of course, we see in things like now, like narcissistic abuse really, impacting people a lot these days. For the most part, people who are emotionally intelligent are able to control themselves and understand their emotions. When you do not have much self-awareness, you cannot figure out why you feel the way you do, or you do not realize how you truly feel. You are acting in response to your emotions, right? And remember, something happened, we have emotions. It's very critical for us to then do some thinking, cognition to it, and we could identify feelings. And a lot of times when we're able to name what we're feeling, we're able to calm down, be able to name it, to tame it, right? You may also not realize what the consequences of an outburst can be, and sometimes you don't even care, right? So you're prone to emotional outbursts when you lack self-awareness. Number 7, you feel the need to talk all the time. In most settings with others, people cannot get a word in when you start. It's like you're on a stage, right? You don't recognize the need for others to share and to feel heard also. You seem to think that everyone should be interested in or want to hear what you have to say. You do not understand why people seem to avoid you or want to hear from someone else. You really feel like you're the smartest or most knowledgeable person in most rooms or any room, right? That is a sign of a lack of self-awareness. And number 8, most of the things you say are negative or criticizing. And that, that's a difficult person to be around, right? Now, there are many, many negative things that happen every day. Every day we could get some kind of curveball here, some painful story, some bad situation, even in our own lives. And there are many things that we can criticize, and we know that, many things. But there's also much to be thankful for. So we understand that we're not, like living under some rock and not seeing things. So there are negative things, and there are negative things we need to talk about and we need to address. And there are things we need to criticize, right? In a healthy way. So I'm not saying we don't do this, but some people seem to be naturally negative or critical, and some persons are negative and critical continually. So I have no issue us talking about what may consider painful things, negative things, or people being critical. But the continual is an issue. And justify this behavior by saying, so they continually negative, they continually critical, and justify this behavior by saying that they're just being real or they're just being honest, right? They do not seem to be aware of how constant criticizing and only speaking of the negative terribly impacts relationships. It drains sometimes just the peace and fun, out of life, and the laughter out of a room. And even it drains, that genuine praise and thanks that we can give to God, right? It just drains all of that out of every interaction. So I'll come to see you. I'll come to visit you, right? And in visiting you, yes, I may expect if you're going through something tough, we'll talk about that, but we could also talk about some of the positives, right? So I am sharing about Rachel. Now, Rachel is not anyone that I know. It's not any of my clients or anything like that. This is just a story that I made up for this program for teaching purposes, right? So this is not anybody that I know or have dealt with or is dealing with. So Rachel is a bright and beautiful woman. She has 2 degrees and people seem to like her. She has a good job and she loves Jesus. Yet her intimate relationships with her spouse and her parents are strained, and she hardly seems to enjoy life anymore. Her first thought and solution for her problem is that if her husband spent more time with her, she would feel better. So Rachel believes that someone else is responsible for her happiness. But she understands that he is. So I'm just saying what Rachel believes, right? Rachel may not realize this, but this is what Rachel believes. But she understands that her husband is working and studying at the same time, so she would not fuss about it or even talk about it. So Rachel is repressing what she is truly feeling. She doesn't realize that, but that's what she's doing. She just tries not to think about her life, but from time to time, she would lash out at her husband if he didn't wash his dishes or if he left his shoes in the living room. Her husband feels disrespected and unappreciated by these interactions. Rachel doesn't understand why her husband takes it so personally, because this is how she speaks when she's upset. And those seemingly little things to him make her upset. So what Rachel is doing, Rachel is minimizing her behavior and blaming her husband for her lashing out and and she's also being passive aggressive to her husband, because she's really in pain about some other things, and she's using these things as a cover, right? Whether she realizes it or not. When her husband tries to point out things that she can do to work on herself and feel better, she gets defensive and makes excuses, and also points out to him things he is not doing. So of course we see here that Rachel is defensive. Her mom would call most times to complain about her life. So the mom is calling to complain about the mom's life. Rachel does not like these conversations, especially when her mom shares her dislike for Rachel's dad. But she just listens, and when the call has ended, she would go looking for some snacks to eat as she tries to relax. She listens because she just wants her mom to be happy. Rachel is unable to share how she really feels, to set healthy boundaries, and she also feels responsible for making her mom happy. And you know, she's doing some comfort eating there, right? Now, a little back story on Rachel. Rachel is the third of 4 children. Her parents always seem to have problems in their relationship and would take out a lot of their anger on their first child. As a result, Rachel tried to be good, to behave good, to study hard, right? If she had a problem, she tried to deal with it on her own, as she felt her mom was already dealing with so much. When she did share, she was told that she was just being ungrateful or overreacting. So we see the kind of messages that Rachel is getting from her family of origin. And it's really important in terms of self-awareness for us understanding where we came from and how those behaviors and interaction affect our thinking, affect how we see relationships, affect how we see ourselves, how we see people. Very, very critical, right? She learned that her feelings and needs were not important, not because her parents ever said that, but because of how her parents reacted or responded to her when she felt things, to her sharing things. She feels like her parents did their best, and most parents do, right? So she feels like her parents did their best based on where they came from, but she looked forward to the day when she would be old enough to have enough money and to move out of home, right? Now in her own home and with her own family, the peace and happiness she felt she would have, so of course having her own home, her own family, okay, things gonna be good, still seems to elude her. As I say to people, the seeds for destruction for our adult relationships, especially our adult intimate relationships, was sown long before we have even met the people that we share life with as adults, right? And very critical, if we have to be self-aware, we need to understand, we need to become aware of how our upbringing has impacted us, right? Because of our experiences growing up, we shall learn how to repress and not be in touch with our feelings. Also, asking for help was not helpful, right? So of course, she started to learn to repress things, deal with stuff on her own. And these factors strongly contributed to Rachel's lack of self-awareness. So of course, in the next program, I would be addressing how to become more self-aware. So if we have time for calls, it would be great if persons calling in would share their own journey in becoming self-aware, their own journey in becoming self-aware. I know for me, a lot of it had to do with taking feedback. So when persons said things to me about myself, I tried to, especially people I know care about me, my husband, friends, relatives, right? They said things to me. I would really try to not just ignore it, to look at it. You know, you have even church leaders sharing things with you and co-workers. Look at it. Don't just throw it aside. Okay, Petreece, this is what they're saying. You know, why are they saying this? What it is about my behavior? And then remember, behaviors are based on how we think. So what it is about my thinking, what it is about my mindsets that cause me to behave like this. So a lot of my self-awareness would have come from my relationships, people being able to tell me about me. Self-awareness also came from allowing the word to assess me. So the word of God tells us how we need to behave, how we need to respond, how we need, you know, to deal with situations. And am I, not just in my behaviors, but also my thinking, am I doing what God would like me to do? And then thinking about, why am I not doing what, you know, God will want me to do, right? Because we have to remember, being a follower of Jesus is not a religion. It is a lifestyle. It is how we live with God and how we live with people. It is a lifestyle, and therefore very critical was the word of God, and the word of God showing me and shining a light on me. So even in my journey to become more self-aware, allowing feedback from others, but also allowing the word of God to also shine a light on me and see where, okay, no, I need to be doing this or doing that better. So if we calling in, right, to share your own journey on becoming more self-aware, but I really hope that this program would have been a blessing to all the viewers and the listeners, right? So Raymond, just turning over to you.
I am here with you. Are you hearing me? Wonderful program as usual,
If they're hearing you
Petreece.
in the studio,
I sit here and I
right?
also
So
learn and the importance about
just,
that whole
of
thing about
course,
self-awareness.
continuing
Right?
with this
So thank
series
you very
of
much. God
the
continue to
11
bless you and keep you.
important skills for healthy relationship. And they are, again, self-awareness. Number 2, emotional regulation. Number 3, empathy. Number 4, being vulnerable. Number 5, controlling anger or anger management. Number 6, conflict resolution. Number 7, active listening. Number 8, talking and listening to each other with openness and respect, especially with respect to difficult conversations. Number 9, forgiving. Number 10, repenting and apologizing. And number 11, setting boundaries. Really critical skills if we need to have healthy interpersonal, healthy, intimate relationships. And of course, if you want, I can be reached on WhatsApp. All right, WhatsApp for counseling. I do not counsel over the phone, right? You have to set up an appointment to get counseling, and I counsel persons online only. And that number is 329-7383. That's 329-7383. So I'm turning back over to the studio at this time. Thanks very, very much for tuning in, and thanks very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Petreece, Cuffie. And you've been listening to the program Healthy Relationship with the topic self-awareness.
Hi, I'm Petreece Cuffie, counselor and trainer, and one of my deepest desires is to see people experience the fulfillment and growth that comes through healthy relationships. We're wired for relationships, so tune in and join with me as I explore and discuss tools for healthy relationships every Monday, 12:15 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM.